All right, so are you ready to like really dive deep into empathic listening?
I am so ready. Let's do it.
Awesome. So we're going to be taking a look at this chapter from a textbook all about narrative inquiry. And a big focus of this chapter is empathic listening.
Yes, and it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So what is it like? How is empathic listening different from just regular listening?
Well, I think a lot of times we think we're listening, but we're really just kind of waiting for our turn to talk.
Yeah.
So empathic listening is really about trying to step into the shoes of the speaker and understand their world and their experience.
Okay, so it's not just about hearing the words, but also like understanding the emotions behind them.
Exactly. It's about connecting with the speaker on a much deeper level. And that involves paying attention not just to the content of what they're saying, but also to their tone of voice, their body language, all those nonverbal cues.
So like if someone says, I'm fine, but they're like rolling their eyes or their tone is like sarcastic, there's something else going on there.
Yeah. Exactly. You're picking up on those subtle cues that tell you there's more to the story than just the words themselves.
Interesting. The chapter also mentions this thing called partial listening, which I think we're all guilty of sometimes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like we're only half present in the conversation. While we're hearing the words, our minds are busy formulating our response or getting lost in our own thoughts.
It's like we're multitasking, but with listening.
Exactly. And we end up missing those crucial emotional cues and the deeper meaning behind what the speaker is trying to tell us.
And the chapter even says that most people have rarely, if ever, experienced being truly listened to for any extended period of time.
And that's kind of sad when you think about it, because being truly heard can be incredibly validating and healing.
Yeah, I can see that. So how do we become better empathic listeners? Where do we even start?
Well, I think it starts with intention. You have to make a conscious choice to be present, to quiet that inner chatter and really focus on the person speaking to you.
Okay, so it's like mindfulness, but for conversations.
Exactly. It's about being fully present in the moment and creating a space where the speaker feels safe and heard.
I like that. And the chapter also talks about this idea of containment, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, containment is this incredible ability to hold someone's strong emotions without getting overwhelmed by them yourself. It's like you're creating a container that can hold those feelings safely.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
So how do we actually do that? Is it just about like sitting there and absorbing their emotions?
It's more about creating a safe space for them to express themselves fully without judgment. So if someone starts crying, for example, you wouldn't try to stop them or change the subject. You would just sit with them and acknowledge their feelings.
So you're saying it's okay to let them cry?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about normalizing those emotions and showing them that it's okay to feel deeply. You might say something like, it's okay to cry. It's clear this is important to you.
So you're validating their emotions without trying to fix them or make them go away?
Exactly. Validation is key in empathic listening. It's about letting the speaker know that their feelings are understandable and that you're there for them no matter what.
The chapter also talks about different techniques for reflecting our understanding back to the speaker. Can you elaborate on those a little?
Sure. So there are 3 key techniques: summarizing, paraphrasing, and mirroring. Summarizing is like giving a concise recap of what you've heard using the speaker's own words. Paraphrasing is similar, but you're rephrasing their words in a more concise way, focusing on the essence of what they've said. And mirroring is all about reflecting back the feelings you're picking up on, both verbally and non-verbally.
It's like if someone says, I'm so frustrated with my boss, you might mirror that by saying, it sounds like you're really feeling frustrated with your boss right now.
Exactly. And you might even subtly mirror their body language, like furrowing your brow or leaning in slightly to show that you're empathizing with their frustration.
I see. So these techniques are all about showing the speaker that you're actively trying to understand their experience on a deeper level.
Precisely. And it's not just about the words you use, it's also about your tone of voice, your body language, and the overall energy you bring to the conversation.
It's like you're saying, I'm with you on this journey, and I'm here to listen without judgment.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the chapter goes on to talk about the interviewer's role in empathic listening, but I think a lot of these principles apply to any conversation where we want to listen deeply.
Absolutely. It's about creating a safe and supportive space for the speaker to share their story and their emotions.
And it all starts with cultivating a genuine curiosity and openness. Be willing to step outside your own perspective and enter the world of the speaker, even if their views or experiences differ from your own.
So it's about putting aside our own biases and preconceptions and truly opening ourselves to the other person's reality.
Exactly. And that can be challenging sometimes, especially when we hear something that triggers a strong emotional response in us.
Yeah, the chapter talks about how to manage our own personal reactions during empathic listening, which has been tricky.
It's about recognizing those reactions as they arise and not letting them hijack the conversation. It's not about suppressing those reactions. It's more about acknowledging them without letting them take over.
So like if you hear something that makes you angry or defensive, you can mentally acknowledge that feeling without letting it dictate your response.
Exactly. You can say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling defensive right now, but I'm going to stay curious and try to understand where this person is coming from.
And instead of jumping in with our own opinions or trying to fix the situation, we can simply acknowledge the speaker's perspective and validate their feelings.
That's right. It's not about us. It's about creating that safe space for the speaker to share their story and their emotions.
I love that. And speaking of stories, the chapter also includes a really powerful example called Sophie's Story that illustrates these principles in action. Are you ready to dive into that?
Absolutely. I think Sophie's story will really bring all of these concepts to life and show us how they play out in a real-world conversation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's Sophie's story all about?
So Sophie is a woman who is sharing her experience of coming out as a lesbian later in life, and she talks about the challenges of navigating societal stigma, the coping mechanisms she developed, and the evolution of her relationship with her partner. It's a really moving and insightful story.
Wow, that sounds intense. I'm eager to hear how the interviewer navigated those sensitive topics and fostered that deep connection with Sophie. What were some of the interviewer's most effective responses in this example?
One moment that really stood out to me was when Sophie was talking about the internal struggles she faced with her sexual identity. She mentioned feeling stigmatized and having a hard time accepting the label lesbian. The interviewer responded with a simple but powerful statement. You mentioned stigma a couple of times and having a hard time adopting the label.
It seems like such a basic response. What made it so effective?
It was brilliant because it fell between a reflection and a question. It acknowledged what Sophie had said, highlighting those key themes of stigma and identity, and invited her to elaborate further, but it did so without interrupting the flow of her narrative.
Oh, I see. It's like gently nudging the door open for Sophie to walk through without forcing her in any particular direction.
Exactly. It allowed Sophie to explore those feelings at her own pace and in her own way.
That's powerful. Now, were there any moments in the interview where the interviewer could have done better? Any missed opportunities for a deeper connection?
There was one moment that really stood out to me. Sophie was talking about a period in her life where she was drinking heavily, spending recklessly, feeling very much out of control. The interviewer focused on the positive outcome, the fact that Sophie eventually got her life back on track, but missed the opportunity to explore that difficult period more deeply.
I see. It's easy to shy away from those painful or messy parts of someone's story, but why was that a missed opportunity?
Because that out-of-control period coincided with Sophie coming out to herself and others. It was a pivotal point in her narrative, and exploring it further could have revealed deeper insights into how those experiences were interconnected. How her coming out might have impacted that period of her life.
So it was about understanding the context, the emotional landscape that surrounded that difficult period. That makes a lot of sense. How could the interviewer have handled that moment differently? What would a more empathic response have looked like?
Instead of glossing over that period, the interviewer could have gently guided Sophie back to it, acknowledging her progress while inviting her to revisit those challenging emotions. They could have said something like, "So you got your life back on track," which is fantastic. I'm curious, though, to hear more about that period where you felt out of control. It sounds like your drinking, your spending, your coming out were all happening around the same time.
Ah, that's such a subtle shift, but it makes all the difference. It acknowledges the positive outcome while gently inviting Sophie to delve into those more complex emotions without judgment.
Exactly. And it's a perfect example of how empathic listening is about holding all the elements of someone's story, even the messy parts, and creating a space for them to unfold naturally.
Wow, that's powerful. Sophie's story is really highlighting the nuances of empathic listening. It's clearly more than just listening to words. It's about understanding the context, the emotions, the unspoken layers of meaning.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that everyone's story is unique and deserves to be heard with empathy and compassion. That's what makes empathic listening such a transformative practice, both for the listener and the speaker.
This is already giving me so much to think about. So what can we learn from Sophie's story? How can we apply these insights to our own lives and become more empathic listeners?
Sophie's story teaches us that true listening goes beyond simply hearing words. It's about being present, being attuned to the speaker's emotions, and creating a safe space for them to share their story, even the parts that are difficult or painful. It's about recognizing that everyone has a story to tell, and sometimes all it takes is a truly empathic listener to help them unlock its power.
It's like we're holding a sacred space for their story to unfold, honoring their vulnerability and courage in sharing their truth.
Exactly. And by listening with empathy and compassion, we not only create a more meaningful connection with the speaker, but we also expand our own capacity for understanding and growth.
This has been an incredible deep dive into empathic listening so far. We've covered so much ground, from the core principles to the nuanced techniques and even some powerful examples. But we're not done yet.
We're just getting started. In part 2, we'll continue exploring the depths of empathic listening, diving into more practical tips and strategies for cultivating this powerful skill in our everyday lives.
I can't wait. Until then, I encourage you to reflect on your own listening habits. Are you truly present in your conversations? Are you attuning to the speaker's emotions? Challenge yourself to listen beyond the words and see what you discover. Welcome back to our deep dive into empathic listening. Before we jumped into Sophie's story, you were talking about how we need to be mindful of our own reactions while listening. It's so easy to get caught up in our own judgments and biases, but how do we actually keep those in check?
Yeah, that's one of the trickiest parts. It takes a lot of self-awareness and practice. The first step is simply noticing those reactions as they come up. What thoughts or feelings come up for you when you hear certain things? What triggers those judgments or biases?
Right, so it's like becoming aware of our own internal dialogue.
Exactly. And once you're aware of those reactions, you can start to create a little space between the reaction and your response. Give yourself a moment to pause before you react.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like hitting the pause button on our autopilot response.
Exactly. And that pause allows us to choose a more conscious response.
Yeah.
One that's grounded in empathy and understanding.
So instead of interrupting or disagreeing or trying to offer solutions, we can just acknowledge the speaker's perspective.
Right, and you can do that even if you don't agree with them. You can say something like, I hear what you're saying, or that sounds really challenging.
It's like validating their experience without imposing our own judgments.
Exactly, and that validation can be so powerful for the speaker.
The chapter also talks about the importance of asking empathic questions. Those questions that really encourage the speaker to share more deeply. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Empathic questions often start with phrases like, what was that like for you? Or how did that make you feel? Or even just, tell me more about that.
Yeah, those are great. It's like you're inviting them to explore their own experiences more fully.
Exactly. And sometimes those questions can lead to unexpected discoveries. The speaker might reveal something they hadn't even realized themselves, or you might gain a completely new perspective on their story.
It's like you're both uncovering hidden layers of meaning.
I love that. Now, I know we've talked about this a little already, but the chapter also emphasizes the importance of containment, especially when it comes to strong emotions. How do we navigate those moments when the speaker is expressing intense sadness or anger?
Yeah, that can be really challenging. It's easy to feel overwhelmed or unsure how to respond.
Right. But remember, containment is all about creating a safe and non-judgmental space for those emotions to exist. You don't shy away from them, you lean into them.
So if someone starts crying, for example,
Yeah.
you wouldn't try to stop them or change the subject. You'd just be present with them and let them cry.
Exactly. And you might offer simple acknowledgments like, it's okay to cry, or I can see how much this means to you. You're not trying to fix their feelings, you're just holding that space for them.
It's like you're giving them permission to feel their emotions fully without judgment.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly healing for the speaker.
The chapter also mentions that we should resist the urge to offer praise or reassurance, even when it feels tempting. Why is that?
When we offer praise or reassurance, we're often trying to make the speaker feel better. But sometimes it can actually have the opposite effect. It can invalidate their experience and make them feel like they're not being heard.
Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes it's more helpful to just acknowledge their feelings rather than trying to cheer them up.
Right. Instead of saying you're so strong for doing that, you might say, it sounds like that took a lot of courage.
It's like you're recognizing their strength without imposing your own judgments on their experience.
Exactly. And that's what makes empathic listening so powerful. It's about allowing the speaker's voice and experience to be at the center of the conversation.
This is making me think about all those times when I've jumped in with advice or tried to fix someone's problems. I'm realizing now that I was often doing it more for myself than for them. It felt uncomfortable to sit with their pain, so I tried to make it go away.
That's a really insightful observation. It's natural to want to fix things or offer solutions, but sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is simply be present with those uncomfortable feelings.
It's like we're learning to sit with discomfort rather than trying to escape it.
Exactly. And that willingness to be present with discomfort is a sign of true empathy.
The chapter also explores this tricky balance between empathy and identification. We want to find common ground with the speaker, but we don't want to overshadow their unique experience. How do we navigate that?
It's a delicate dance for sure. It's great to find points of connection and share our own experiences if it feels appropriate, but it's crucial to avoid making the conversation about ourselves.
So if someone's sharing a story about a difficult experience and we've been through something similar, we might be tempted to jump in with our own story.
Right, but that can shift the focus away from the speaker and their experience. Instead, you can acknowledge their feelings and maybe briefly share your own experience if it feels relevant, but always circle back to their story and make sure they feel heard.
It's like saying, I see you, I hear you, and I honor your unique experience.
Exactly. And that's the heart of empathic listening. It's about creating a space where the speaker feels truly seen and understood.
Now, the chapter also talks about how our own personal reactions can sometimes create bumps in the road during empathic listening.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for navigating those moments when we get triggered or judgmental?
First of all, know that it's going to happen. We're all human, and we all have those moments where our own stuff gets in the way. The key is to be compassionate with yourself and recognize that it's a learning process.
So it's like giving ourselves permission to mess up and learn from those mistakes.
Exactly. And when you notice yourself getting triggered, take a deep breath and gently refocus your attention on the speaker.
It's like hitting the reset button on our internal dialogue.
I like that. And sometimes you might even need to take a break from the conversation if you're feeling overwhelmed. It's okay to say, I need a moment to process this, or can we come back to this later?
So self-care is also an important part of empathic listening.
Absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup, so make sure you're taking care of yourself.
The chapter also mentions that we might be tested by the speaker at times. What does that mean?
Sometimes the speaker might push our boundaries to see how genuine our empathy is. They might share something really challenging or express strong emotions that make us uncomfortable. It's like they're saying, prove to me that you can handle this.
And how we respond to those tests can really make or break the connection.
Right. If we react with judgment or defensiveness, we risk shutting down the conversation. But if we can stay open and curious, even when it's uncomfortable, we demonstrate that we're truly committed to understanding their perspective.
So it's about staying grounded in empathy, even when it's challenging.
Exactly. And that's where true transformation can occur. When we can hold space for someone's story, even the parts that are difficult or challenging, we create a deeper level of connection and trust.
This is all so inspiring. But I have to admit, it also feels a little daunting. Empathic listening seems like a lot of work. What would you say to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by all this?
I would say be patient with yourself. It's a practice, and like any practice, it takes time and effort. Start small, choose one technique to focus on, and just notice how it feels. What shifts do you notice in your conversations? Celebrate those small victories.
That's great advice. It's about taking small steps and gradually incorporating these skills into our everyday lives.
Exactly. And remember, empathic listening is not just about the other person. It's also a gift you give to yourself.
How so?
Well, when you listen with empathy, you open yourself up to new perspectives and deeper understanding. You connect with others on a more meaningful level, and that can be incredibly enriching and rewarding.
This has been such a rich exploration of empathic listening. We've covered so much ground, but there's always more to learn. In part 3, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts on how to integrate this powerful skill into our everyday lives and what it can do for the world around us.
Sounds great. I'm excited to continue the conversation.
All right, so we're back talking about empathic listening, and we've talked about all these different techniques and stuff, but now I'm curious, how do we actually put all this into practice in our everyday lives? It feels kind of daunting.
Yeah, it can feel that way, but I think the key is to start small. Pick one or two things to focus on and just experiment with them in your conversations.
Okay, so what are some small changes we can make that would make a big difference?
Well, one thing is just becoming more aware of your body language.
Mm-hmm.
Are you making eye contact? Are you facing the speaker? Are you nodding your head to show you're listening? These little things can really make a difference.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. It's like you're sending a signal that says, I'm here with you. I'm listening.
Exactly. And another thing is to resist the urge to interrupt. Even if you have something really important to say, just wait until the speaker is finished before you jump in.
Okay, I'm definitely guilty of interrupting. Sometimes I get so excited to share my thoughts, but I need to work on that.
I think we all do. And another thing you can try is to use those empathic questions we talked about. You know, the ones that start with, what was that like for you? Or how did that make you feel?
Yeah, those are great. They really invite the speaker to share more deeply.
And they show that you're genuinely interested in understanding their experience.
Now, I know we talked about how important it is to be mindful of our own reactions, especially when we hear something that triggers us or makes us uncomfortable. But how do we deal with that in the moment, when those feelings come up?
Well, the first step is just noticing those reactions without judgment. Don't beat yourself up for feeling a certain way. Just acknowledge it and then gently redirect your attention back to the speaker.
Okay, so it's like saying to yourself, okay, I'm feeling angry right now, but I'm going to choose to stay present and listen to what this person has to say.
Exactly. And sometimes you might need to take a few deep breaths or repeat a calming mantra to yourself to help you stay grounded.
That's a good tip. I'm going to try that. And, another thing that can be tricky is finding the balance between empathy and identification. We want to connect with the speaker and let them know we understand, but we don't want to make it about ourselves.
Yeah, that's a delicate balance for sure. I think the key is to share your own experiences in a way that's supportive and relevant, but always circle back to the speaker's story and make sure they feel heard.
So it's like offering a little bit of yourself, but always keeping the focus on them.
Exactly. And sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is just sit with the speaker's pain and not try to fix it or offer solutions.
It's like saying, I'm here with you in this, and I don't need you to be any different than you are.
That's beautiful. And sometimes that's all someone needs to feel truly heard and understood.
This has been such an amazing deep dive into empathic listening. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm excited to start putting all of this into practice.
Me too. It's been such a pleasure talking with you about this.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We hope you found this deep dive insightful and inspiring. And remember, empathic listening is a skill that we can all learn and cultivate with practice. So go out there and start listening.